Hi, we are looking at the positive and negative externalities associated with the Ada County Highway District.
Externalities are something that is an unintended outcome of a product or service. So with the Ada County Highway District, unintended outcomes of building a new road or maintaining roads could be hindering businesses from foot traffic, or a positive externality could be once the roadway is completed, that more foot traffic and more traffic in general is taken to these businesses.
We are on our way to go and interview Justin Lucas, the project and planning supervisor of ACHD, to discuss with him the externalities associated with his business. Setting the camera. How you guys doing? Yeah, we're just out here. Awesome. So my name's Nick, and I'm here with Justin from ACHD, and we're gonna interview him about the positive and negative externalities associated with his business.
What is your job title and your specific duties that come along with it?
So here at ACHD, I'm the planning and programming manager. As part of my duties, I manage the short, medium, and long-term plans for the highway district. We every year produce an integrated 5-year work plan, which is a 5-year basically construction document that details all of the projects we're working on and which phase they're in. We also have a 20-year strategic plan that I manage, and all of the other plans associated with roadway projects.
Wow, so you guys do plan quite extensively into the future for this?
Yeah, we're looking ahead. I mean, that's a big part of what we do, is make sure that the decisions we're making now about our infrastructure are not just short-term decisions, but really intended for the long term, to last a really long time.
What are the main jobs and projects that ACHD handles?
So ACHD is a special purpose government. We have jurisdiction, exclusive jurisdiction over all of the roadways in Ada County except for the state highway system. So that includes obviously the roadway, the sidewalks and pathways that run parallel to the roadway, bike facilities, and then all of the drainage infrastructure associated with that also. So all of the water that runs off the road, we take care of that. And then there's signal infrastructure and all of the other maintenance equipment and infrastructure that's required to maintain the roadways in good shape. So that's a big part of what we do, and all of the decisions we make associated with that are controlled by a commission of 5 members. And so these are elected officials that help guide the highway district and its function.
So are those officials elected through the company, or is that a government body that?
No, it's actually a government body. So it's a special purpose government. It was created by the voters of Ada County back in the early 1970s. And so there's 5 commissioners, there's 5 districts, and each commissioner is voted into office by the citizens that live in their district.
Where does the funding from ACHD come from?
Yeah, really good question. ACHD gets funding from multiple sources. Our largest source of funding is property taxes, so that's homeowners and businesses that own property within Ada County. A portion of their property taxes go towards the Ada County Highway District. We also have user fees, like vehicle registration fees. So when you go to the DMV, you register your vehicle, there's a portion of that fee that comes to the highway district. We charge impact fees to developers. So new development, when they come in, they have to pay impact fees to the highway district, and those are intended to help obviously pay for the impacts of growth within Ada County. Those are probably the largest sources of revenue we have. There's a lot of fees we charge related to the development process, but and we do receive some money through gas tax, the highway users fee. That's another one that we also access.
So primarily state funding is?
Well, it's state funding for the gas tax, but the other sources aren't really considered state funding. I mean, property taxes are a local source of funding, and they're decided upon by the highway district.
So primarily state funding is?
Well, it's state funding for the gas tax, but the other sources aren't really considered state funding. I mean, property taxes are a local source of funding, and they're decided upon by the highway district.
So when you start a new project, what is the average amount of time it takes to plan that project out and before it hits the runway?
Yeah, depending on the size of the project, a major project like a roadway expansion or a new intersection, typically takes about 3 years. There's a design phase where we do a lot of public involvement. We talk to the adjacent property owners, we look at all the different impacts, and we decide on the kind of final design of the roadway. Once we have that complete, we go into the right-of-way phase, which is where we purchase the necessary land to build the project. We don't always have the right-of-way we need, and so we're oftentimes having to buy property from adjacent property owners. And then the construction phase. So it's kind of that 3-year process. A big project is usually completed in one construction season. Sometimes it bleeds over a little bit into another construction season, but that's a typical project process for us.
So when you do plan to do these projects, especially in more like urbanized areas downtown, you're creating new roadways, do the social costs and benefits come into play with when you're planning that all out?
Yeah, public infrastructure, especially roadways, there's a lot of consequences to widening a roadway, including property impacts, drainage, environmental impacts, etc. And all of those factors are taken into account during the design phase of our projects. And even before that, we have a master street map that kind of outlines our vision for all of the different roadways in Ada County. And so we start from a place of kind of planning, but the closer you get to construction, the more controversial a project can become. And roadways are interesting. I mean, you're going to have maybe the adjacent property owner who has feels like they've been negatively impacted by the project, but the users who are going through that corridor feel positively benefited by the project. And so ultimately you have to kind of balance what is right for the public in general.
And that's my next question. So how would you, who decides whether the negative externalities outweigh the positive externalities caused to the public?
I think ultimately our elected officials. So the commission would decide through the public involvement process, and this happens a lot, where there's a lot of people that come and testify to them about a project before the final decision is made. They weigh all of that testimony. They also look at the engineering benefits and the staff recommendation. They weigh all of those different variables and then decide, are we going to move forward or are we not going to move forward? And as you can imagine, sometimes people aren't happy with the decision, but ultimately they're elected to make those decisions.
Which economic factors do you believe are the most important or significant that you and your company provide?
So in transportation, the economic factor that is probably the most apparent to us is the freedom of movement. The ability to transport goods and services and people efficiently throughout our county. With freedom of movement, it's there's a balance there, because if we really wanted people to go wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted, with no congestion, our roads would have to be really, really big and really, really wide, and they would be very, very expensive. So there's a balance, but ultimately, ACHD's responsibility is to provide a safe place for people to move throughout our county. That's what the public right-of-way is for. And it has a huge economic impact. I'll give you an example. When you add a new link into the system or a new connection spot, like the 10-mile interchange, that wasn't an ACHD project. It was done by ITD, but ACHD's roadways link into that interchange on the interstate. You can now, when you drive through that area, there's new businesses that are being built right adjacent to 10 Mile Road, Franklin Road, and the interchange area because of the access that has now been provided to that area. So that's a huge economic benefit to the Treasure Valley, because you have jobs now available closer to where people live. And so that's the kind of thing that we probably look at the most when it comes to economic benefit, is creating those new links, new connections, and facilitating the ease of movement between goods and services and people.
Excellent. So you were talking about creating jobs, and so that kind of leads into my next question. So obviously ACHD is quite a large company in Boise. So how many people does ACHD employ?
I don't know the exact number. I think it's about 340. It's kind of mid 300s of actual employees that work at the highway district. But if you look at our economic impact, it's much larger than just the jobs we provide to ACHD's employees, because we put out a lot of contract work. And so when we let out a contract for the contracting community to build something, those can be multi-million-dollar contracts, and then so that money is going into the system and providing jobs for all of those the people who work on our projects. And I think our economic impact is compounded by not just what we do, but all of the impact we have on construction in our area.
Yes, so ACHD isn't so much in charge of the construction as much as facilitating everything that has to go on.
Correct.
to complete the project.
We inspect it, we make sure it meets our standards, but the actual construction projects, most of them, especially the large ones, are done by the contracting community. So these are private companies that we hire to go build the projects.
That's excellent. And so then, once a project is completed, like the roadways and stuff, who's in charge of maintaining it?
So it goes through the construction process. Once it's done, ACHD takes over the maintenance and operations of that facility.
So when a new project is started, there's obviously a lot of congestion that can go on as far as like when you're building and such.
Sure.
So is there any precautions that is taken before the project begins to ensure that the congestion doesn't stop a city, slow it down?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're doing a construction project in a roadway, there's disruption. There's no doubt about that. So we carefully look at parallel corridors. We do a lot of outreach to the business community along a corridor or adjacent to a project to let them know what we're doing. We work very hard to try and maintain access to businesses during our construction projects to ensure that the negative economic impacts are lessened. And so we do a lot of, I think it's monthly construction updates where you have the actual people that are constructing the project will hold an open house and talk to adjacent and affected landowners. And almost always we're maintaining some level of traffic open. Very rarely do we completely close a road during the construction process. It'd be a lot easier for us to do it that way, but we know that we have to provide access and connectivity even throughout a project. And typically, so you'll have delay, you'll have construction-related issues for, let's say a 6-month period, but the broader public benefit when it's all done is huge, because then you can really reduce delay, and that's the whole point behind the project.
Exactly. So let's say that we were working on a project in more of the downtown Boise area, and you wanted to redo the roadways and the sidewalks of just one of the main streets. So as far as like the local businesses go, I mean, like, obviously it would slow down like foot traffic and so like is that like taken in and like is that like processed before you guys go into work there?
Like, do you have, like, as far as like regulation and stuff goes, how, like, do you get like the permission from the city or?
Well, as I said, we're not required to get the permission from the city because we have jurisdiction within the right-of-way. All that being said, we work very carefully with the city. We work very closely with the adjacent business owners. In a place like downtown, we'd be working with the Downtown Business Association, with the other business entities to ensure that we are maintaining access to their businesses. That said, I mean, during construction, may a business experience some negative impacts? I think that's probably fair. But after construction, I think you could also make an argument as access is improved and as the roadway and adjacent facilities and sidewalks are enhanced, that we're increasing they're helping to increase potentially their business. And so it's kind of a balance of a temporary disruption for a long-term good.
Excellent. And then I think I have one last question for you there. So you said that the people that oversee ACHD was a group of 5 individuals. Yeah. I'm sorry, was like the
commissioners.
Commissioners. So is there a way for the public to, let's say, lobby the commissioners to get certain things done? Like, how does the public outreach to ACHD and let them know what they want to?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it depends on, I mean, if you're talking about project-specific items, absolutely. There's direct access to ACHD staff and to the ACHD Commission to, provide feedback on a project-specific. If it's broader issues related to planning, related to funding, the Commission holds public hearings on a weekly basis. And so on the public hearing agenda, there's actually an item where people can just come and speak to the Commission directly. That can be very effective. It's also effective for members of the public to participate in the processes that we have. As I said, we annually update our budget. We annually update our integrated 5-year work plan, and as part of those annual updates, we do a public involvement phase where interested individuals, business owners, citizens can engage with us in a forum where we're asking for their input. You know, what's your project priority? Where are the places where you would like sidewalk? And we ask those questions broadly to the public, and then take that input and feed it into our plans.
Excellent. Yeah, sounds great. We are here with Justin Lucas, speaking of the externalities of ACHD, and I'd like to thank you so much for giving the time to allow us to interview you on a very busy schedule. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we're all set.
All right, so after an extensive interview with Justin, we'll now be heading out to the public to see what they think about the Ada County Highway District and how it affects them. All right, so we're here in a coffee shop with Janice, and we're going to ask her a few questions about the Ada County Highway District. So how do you think Ada County Highway District has affected you and maybe your commute to work or just leisure time?
I think that a person has to allow for getting to their destination will be longer than they usually think. I live out in the west end where the Cloverdale overpass 2-year saga went, and you just learn to avoid that. And if you're going somewhere around there, make time.
So do you think that all the road work was worth it?
Oh, I think the overpass was, because it had become dangerous. You bet.
So I'm here with my neighbor Caitlin, and we're going to ask her some questions about how road work affects her. So how do you think road work affects you positively or negatively?
I come from LA, so there's a lot of traffic, so sometimes I view it as a negative thing, but in the end, the streets look nicer because the road work is getting done.
So do you think overall there's a positive outlook for the public from road work?
Yeah, because although there's a lot of traffic,
After interviewing the public and personnel from ACHD, we've come to the conclusion that the positive externalities outweigh the negative externalities, so overall the ACHD's roadwork and maintenance has a positive effect on the community and economy. Now that everything is all said and done, we'd like to give a special thank you to you for watching and all of the people on the screen right now. Thanks.